Hey, it's Sammy for another episode of the I Do Music podcast, and our goal and our mission is to empower and educate musicians and artists worldwide. And on today's episode, we sat down with creative director and co-owner of Moda 404, Kwassi, discussing how he has built a contemporary men's boutique over 14 years here in Atlanta, how music and fashion intersect, and how he's worked with some of your favorite artists like Kanye West and Ludacris. Hey, it's Sammy for another episode of the I Do Music podcast, and I'm sitting down with co-owner of Moda 404, a contemporary men's boutique here in Atlanta, as well as designer and just all-around powerhouse, Kwassi, Bill Kataria.
What's up, Atlanta? Sammy, thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, of
it's
course.
An honor, and I really appreciate what you guys are doing, actually. Atlanta definitely needs more information on the movers and shaker and the people that are definitely working behind the scene to make this city the hip-hop culture for what it is, you know.
Well, we appreciate you for taking some time to sit down because I know you're busy. We were just talking about it's not the first anymore, but the first of the month. You got to handle stuff as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, handle the bills.
Exactly.
Right now.
I was in New York, actually. I got a text message from my big brother, Curtis. So we've known each other for over 20 years. I couldn't wait to just kind of come by and just give you guys some information of my what I've been doing, my journey.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think it's important, and we talked a little bit off the record, but it's important to, tell your own story and, in the way that you know it best. So,
exactly.
We're interested in hearing that. Now, I mean, often we have songwriters, producers, musicians, executives on this podcast in the music space, but your story is unique because, it intersects fashion and hip hop. So I want to talk about that, but I also want to just talk about your journey. So, raised in New York.
Yes, actually, I came in New York in 1986 from West Africa.
Yes.
And my father actually worked for the United Nations for over 40 years. So he was a diplomat in the city.
How does that even look for you as his son to a diplomat in New York?
Well, I was definitely privileged, and at the time as a kid, I didn't understand it. And, I remember just taking trips to Paris and Africa at the time as a kid. I didn't want to travel. I wanted to just, stay in New Rochelle, where I'm from, with my friends and just kind of like go to summer camp, play basketball.
Right.
And now as an adult, I have definitely a great appreciation for what I've seen as a young child.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, we'll talk about, your travels and how that influenced and inspired where you are in fashion, but also talk about how him being a diplomat and his wardrobe and his professional attire also inspired that sense of fashion for you, or your style and your aesthetic.
That's very true, very true. So again, raised Catholic, and there was a lot of principles and morals in the household. We lived in the suburbs of New Rochelle, New York, and Westchester. I went to New Rochelle High School, and then I actually later on attempted Blessed Sacrament, which was a Catholic school where I met Chi Ali. And Chi Ali and I were best friends. We played on the same team, and he was going to Iona. And every morning when he went to Iona, G. Robertson, which they're all from Co-op City in the Bronx. Like, G. Robertson used to also be Kanye's manager back in the day. So there's a lot of historical things in the foundation of my journey. And, New Rochelle was one of the cities where you had Brand Nubians that were just like one of the coolest hip-hop groups of my timeline, actually. And a bunch of them, actually. So, yeah.
So I guess talk to me about like your initial like discovery of loving fashion, or like when you got into that, because you talk about growing up, you were a kid wanting hang out with your friends, play basketball, but then also being in New York, we know that there's hip hop, there's fashion, there's culture. So I'm just curious to know, like, what was that initial? Okay, I really think I have something with this lane of things, and this is something I'm passionate about.
Right. So again, when you are growing in a situation like myself. My father every morning was wearing a suit to go to work. And at the time, I didn't really appreciate that. I just noticed that he was a swell dresser. And my mother became a housewife, and she literally started like sewing. And I remember just coming home from a basketball practice after school, and she'll be like, "Hey, come over here, try this on for me." And I'm like, "Mom, I'm not going to do that for you." But it became a habit where she kept kind of like telling me, "Try this on. It's just going to take 10 seconds. I just want to see what it looks like." So I was her mannequin at the time.
Right.
And then all this time, I didn't really know that I was actually surely making my way towards the love of fashion, you know. And then afterwards, you know, the first day in school, every season, you have to look fresh. So I remember just telling my parents to take me to Macy's, and I started buying. At the time, in our it was Macy's was very expensive growing up. You know, this is like the '80s, the late '80s, early '80s. I mean, sorry, late '80s. So you're at Macy's and you have like these Bum Equipment, Badge, just to name a couple brands back then that were like the brands to have, you know. So it was quite interesting.
Yeah.
And later on, I started going to the city, and then I fell in love with the city and just watching people just, you know, expressing themselves in a different fashionable manner. And I gradually started appreciating fashion. It became very unique in terms of my life, my dressing also.
What were you wearing?
Chabots.
Chabots.
And Jordans.
Yeah.
And Z Cavarucci's.
I'm not familiar.
That's
that sounds...
If you're from my era, you'll understand it.
Yeah.
So, and then basically, it was just like the influence came from De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest, Far Side, also, just to name a few. It was just the individuality of people back then, where you were just self-expressing yourself through art as far as fashion is concerned. Yeah, for the most part.
Eventually, I mean, or something that I read that you always dreamt of building this like lifestyle brand, which is, you know, something that you've been able to do with Motive 404, and just also your personal brand and the designers that you've been able to work with over the years, right? Sure. But like at the time, I don't know that it necessarily was, you would have considered it a lifestyle brand. Like, how did you know that that was what you were looking to create or build, you know, even upon eventually going to school, which we'll talk about that part of your journey, but just coming up, like, how did you realize that that was what it was, like a lifestyle brand? What does that even mean?
Well, to be quite honest with you, my first retail job was Lord & Taylor's. And then I remember at the time, my parents were actually taking care of me, paying for my tuition and also my living. So I had to get a job if I wanted to wardrobe myself and look cool. So at the present time, I went to Lord & Taylor. I remember there was a cool vintage shop in Atlanta called Stefan's. So at the time, I couldn't afford anything that was more so polo. So what I did, I basically took the same look and I went to a thrift store and I mocked the same look. I looked the part. I was on the sales floor and I worked at the Polo Ralph Lauren section at Lord & Taylor. And gradually, I went to J. Crew. Because at the time, the prep look was definitely the status look where that was the cool look to actually, you know, to get the girls to look cool, to have some sort of common sense and to look educated. So I went to J. Crew, and after J. Crew, my dream was to work at Polo Sport. So Polo Sport was very, very challenging. You couldn't get in there. It's like, it was like, if you made it to Polo Sport in retail, you were the guy.
Right.
Mind you, I'm still in college, so I want to work at Polo Sport. And I finally went to Polo Sport. I finally got in.
You got in?
Got in.
What did it take? How long did it take?
It took me 3 years to get in.
Sheesh.
Yeah. And then once I got in, I was in the game. I was able to meet Pharrell. I was able to meet, like, I mean, you name it at the time. It was just like an honor, like Lil Wayne. And then I gradually worked my way to the men's department and selling suits. And then that's where I kind of created this persona where I looked up to Tyson Beckford as a model. He was an African-American guy from New York and very challenging, you know, and you wanted that kind of like that, have that same look, that corporate look, but still elegant, you know. So I started killing the suit game. Yeah. I remember I came across Jeezy one day in the mall. He's like, "Yo, bro, you killing the suit, man. I'm going to need you to help me out, get my suit together, brother." I was like, "No problem, I got you." So I started working with like Luda, and then that was very a fun project. I worked with Luda, I worked with Bobby V, I worked with Phil Mob, did the cover album, and I did a lot of work behind the scene. And at the time, this is when the record label had a big budget for wardrobing, and I was in my own lane. I felt like a superstar because the checks were there, and I'll be in Miami during a video set. I'll have about $30,000 worth of wardrobe for the artist, whichever it was, and it was really cool.
When you talk about that, you working with these particular artists, like you had the opportunity to work with Pharrell, you had the opportunity to work with Luda. This was on the label side outside of what you were doing in the store, right?
This is like in the early 90s, like late, mid-90s actually. Yeah.
I know you became a wardrobe stylist for Def Jam.
Yeah.
Which is, I didn't know that was even a thing. How did you land? Was that a thing at the time? Or?
Well, it was mainly the relationships with the artists.
Got you.
And I kind of it was just more so me just being the individual that I am, and also going to school with Bobby V. He was the one that was like, yo, kid, you got to come on board with me, man. I like the way you dress, your sense of individuality and fashion and self-expression. I definitely need you to be on the team. So from that point, DTP, shout out to Shaka Zulu, shout out to the whole fam. They were very supportive at the time. And that's another thing I gotta say about Atlanta that I love so much. There's such a tight community of supportive people, and people actually believe in each other's dream, and they're always there. And that's the reason why I've been able to stick around for 14 years now in business. Yeah. It's been very supportive, and I really love the community that I represent. To actually, I love the fact that we're still growing together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we went through a recession and everything, and it's not easy, but we're making it happen.
Absolutely. I mean, so we got to backtrack a little bit because you mentioned that you were in school here in Atlanta, but we didn't get to the transition. So. Sure. Initially, you didn't attend Clark. You went to another school prior to.
Sure. So basically, my father was being transferred from New York City to Germany. Mm-hmm. And what happened is that he didn't want me to stay in the city. The city at the time was quite expensive and quite, you could get in trouble. So he put me into a boarding school my senior year in Great Lakes Academy of Ventus. Mind you, here I am. I'm, from New York, and also I was in the Midwest, and it was a whole different culture, but it was also fun because at that time I was able to make some close friends that I'm still friends to this day on Michigan's campus. And later on, I actually attended LC, and I transferred my credits to come to Clark Atlanta University. But to kind of go back to the Midwest stories and lifestyle, hip hop was growing. And I was able to actually catch hip-hop at its best because I used to be in Detroit at the Shelter, Legends, Maxie's off Telegraph, Black Orchid, 7 Miles, Maurice Malone. So that whole era was just incredible. And when I came to Atlanta, I realized that I was coming to another city of the hip-hop culture. So Clark Atlanta was really the move, and I loved it.
But why Atlanta at the time? Why did you feel like you needed to come to Clark?
Well, I always heard the rumors up north about the beautiful ladies in the South.
Right.
And, the tropical lifestyle. And also the fact that it was an HBCU school, and my sister was actually attending Spelman also. So I didn't know how close the campus were to one another. So when I came here, I was quite intrigued by the whole, historical part of what the HBCU represented. And I loved it. But at the same time, too, you have to keep in mind that my dad lived in Germany. So I was able to see two sides of the world where I was on campus where it was a predominantly black school. And then afterwards, when I left the campus to go to vacation in Germany, it was a whole different world.
Right.
So again, here we are, different culture, different world. I'm in New York, I'm in Germany. I'm starting to see different fashion sense. So I want to be different. I don't want to look like the other guy. Because when I came to the South, I was definitely a New Yorker. I was North Face, Columbia jackets, and, that whole outdoor element. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, I saw myself slowly transitioning into the turtlenecks, the ties, the blazers, the corduroys, mm-hmm. Or riding my bike buying a candle bike and being on campus, kind of looking like the professor. Yeah. And walking around with a GQ catalog under my arm and just looking very sophisticated and educated in my eyes, Yeah. So that was the prep look.
How would you say like being well traveled? Because I know that you frequented, back and forth from Germany to Atlanta and New York, and you're able to see, you know, globally have a different perspective. How would you say being well traveled helped you creatively and in like understanding and recognizing fashion as a global market? But then also, why is it important for other industries for you to have like a global perspective, be it if you're an artist or if you work outside of the entertainment space? Why do you think having global perspective is important?
Well, just to touch base on what you just said, a global perspective puts things in perspective where you actually see a world from a different point of view, artistically, visually, and also it motivates you to be more creative. Because sometimes people have the tendency to stay in a box where they think that if they're doing something different, they want to they're not doing the right thing. So individuality nowadays is kind of like what sells, whether it's fashion or music or, back in the days, a lot of people have actually had rules. If you, it's kind of like growing up, listening to hip hop music. If you didn't have common sense rapping, you were kind of like the oddball. Mm-hmm. But now it seems like anything goes. Mm-hmm. That's the beauty about being in America. That's the beauty about being global, where I think that the hip-hop culture has influenced a lot of people globally. I speak French. That's my first language.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I forgot to tell you about that. So being able to speak French, now I'm listening to other French artists that are just incredible rappers. Growing up, one of my favorite MCs from Paris was MC Solar, an amazing rapper that actually, in comparison to Nas, I would say, and The Guru, may he rest in peace, Gangstar. That was incredible because they mixed the melodies between jazz and, just hip hop. So that's the thing now with fashion, where you have the tendency of seeing people wearing certain things that you kind of like raise your eyebrow, like, what the hell is that? But then again, there's an appreciation for it, and I know exactly where the influence comes from internationally, whether it's Japanese fashion or French fashion or Atlanta's fashion, because every state has a different fashion. You have LA fashion, you have London fashion, you have the French, you have the Italians. So I know all the looks, and then you have the American fashion. It's kind of like you got the buckhead guy, who's the preppy guy still to this day with the Oxford shirt and the khaki pants, and then you have the Midtown guy, which is more flamboyant, and then you got the trap music guy who, he'll show you his wealth, the ice, the rollie.
He'll show you his wealth.
How he's moving.
Yeah, I think that's pretty interesting to see, how we're influenced by where we are, what we can see.
Sure.
I also think it's funny not funny, but I think it's interesting to highlight some of like the newer trends.
Sure.
So, I mean, obviously, you had an uproar, a craze when Thug wore the dress or the skirt, or Jaden, experimenting with fashion and wearing like the skirt and the dress. But we know that to be something that is not unusual in like other cultures or like other parts of the world where people wear those things. And so, but coming from like a city like Atlanta, it immediately made people believe something different about the sense of style. So I'm curious to know how you feel about even like gender, like what we're supposed to wear as men and women, or like, are there any boundaries in your eyes for fashion?
Yeah, there are certain boundaries, but to be honest with you, nowadays as musicians and in my world, I call hip hop the new rock and roll. And I'm starting to realize that certain people kind of, they have the tendency of having like this aura of like the shock value of people. Oh my God, he wore a skirt.
Right.
Oh my God, he's wearing lipstick. Well, if you look at the history of rock and roll, David Bowie, they did it.
Yeah.
I always say fashion repeats itself. What goes around comes around.
Yeah.
Right now, there's a trend that's coming back around, slowly but surely. Bell bottoms. You're gonna start seeing more men with the skinny jeans with the wide leg. It's happening. It looks like a elephant foot.
Trunk. Yeah.
So it's interesting because if you go to England and you go to New York, you'll start seeing those trends happening, and it's gradually going to come to Atlanta. I got a funny story to tell you.
Sure. Let's hear it.
You're not going to believe that I was the first guy to wear skinny jeans in Atlanta. And I caught hell.
I'm sure.
guys used to say, "What the hell are you wearing those skinny jeans for with those big feet?" And I was like, "Hey, man, you'll be here one day. Don't worry about me." And the confidence level. It's the way I would, but the thing of it, I wasn't getting it to get a shock value. It's the fact that I was in Europe and I was watching these soccer players. They put a denim pair of jeans with a casual Adidas shoe, with a blazer, with a white collar shirt, and I was like, "Wow, that's a clean corporate look right there. Let me try that when I go to Atlanta." And sure enough, people wanted to look. And then 10 years later, you see everybody now is skin tight jeans.
Right. That's
crazy.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So you're one of the first guys in the skinny jeans.
Yeah, I remember getting Clown and Joan.
I'm sure.
Yep.
No, and I was going to ask you about, things being cyclical, like, fashion in general. My mom has always said that, like, I wish I would have held on to a lot of my stuff because,
Sure. Oh my gosh.
you're wearing a lot of things that I used to wear.
Yes.
So are there any other trends that you've seen transcend over the years that are going to come back besides the bell bottom?
It's interesting that you touched that part of fashion. I've given away so much things in the past that I regret. Mm-hmm. But the beauty behind that, if you have an eye for fashion, you could kind of find those pieces again. Mm-hmm. But it's very true. There's certain things that are just like that I wish I'd never give away. And I was like, crap, I should have just held on to that. But like I said, it's interesting to kind of see the designers now where they repeating the 80s. The oversized look is back in fashion. I don't know if you notice it.
Oh, yeah.
So you're seeing the oversized look, but that came from the Japanese culture. Mm. So a lot of the Japanese kids are like wearing oversized clothing and they make it look cool. Mm-hmm. Atlanta, for the most part, likes it more fitted. But if you go up north, you'll notice that everybody wears an oversized coat in the winter, an oversized hoodie. Mm-hmm. And Atlanta's more, I want it skin tight. I want my T-shirt to choke me.
Now, back in the day, it was definitely wearing tall tees.
Right, exactly, right? So it's like one extreme to another. Yeah. But going back to what you said in terms of like the whole crossover dressing part of it, and it's interesting because I think that that's just for to get a shocker from the people and to kind of boost your record sales or whatever the case may be, and it's a costume, it's a costume, and I'm not for it. That's not my thing. Mm-hmm. I come from a different era. I'm all about the clean suits, the casual look, the leisure look. Mm-hmm. So to each his own. Yeah,
I mean we have to go back to you and polo days, because I know that I know the clients that you've had over the years, from Luda to whoever, but Kanye West obviously was that was his whole look.
That was his whole look. Yeah. And the cool thing about it, when he did College Dropout, it was just one of those things where again the prep look, it was a really big deal. Right. And obviously from that time, I just kind of like want to touch base with a lot of things that I've noticed. A lot of people want to come in the fashion world, but they haven't put the work in. They haven't gotten a chance to actually work the grounds. Where, when I named a couple of those companies that I work for, it was very challenging, but it was also very interesting because I felt like I went to the school of fashion. From clienteling, also from just the tailorship of making like just custom suits and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. I used to literally have CEOs of companies come see me for custom suits. Nice. From overseas to it was incredible how in the beginning I was kind of like scared of suits, and then all of a sudden I just mastered the craftsmanship of like suits and a full canvas, And this is from you literally designing them? No, actually, this is just me from working at Polo and then gradually designing them afterwards. Got you. Yeah. Got you. And just kind of like the interest of designing. Designing is very interesting because you have what you call, in the suit world, you have what you call a fuse, which is sometimes they take the garment and they just glue it, which is a no-no. Sometimes you see guys wearing a cheap suit and you see the wrinkling part of it. And then you have like a full canvas, which is actually hand-finished, and that's the thing that you're paying for, the craftsmanship of it. Right, the tailorship of it. So one thing that I've done, I've never worn a fuse suit. It was a no-no, but for the most part, I'm starting to notice that the suit, everybody's going back to a cleaner look. Everybody's wearing a peacoat now. Everybody's, more so. That's the next thing now. Everybody's going back to looking more debonair. And then what I saw before with like the time where people used to wear zoot suits. Suits were kind of like oversized and baggy and things like that. Yeah. But everybody's, yeah, it was horrible.
I do not like
Yeah, it was
that
horrible.
era.
Now everybody's more tailored, just kind of like their cars with their rims.
Right, facts. So, yeah, I mean, Kurt mentioned that you wore more polo than Grand Poobah at the time.
Yes, I was.
At the time, you had.
I went crazy. I think my whole paycheck went to polo, man. So,
I mean, that's just like that was just an era in itself.
Oh yeah, but it's funny enough to say that my partner and I the other day we were discussing certain things. She's like, "Hey man, stop mentioning so much about polo. You got to talk more about what you've accomplished, the brand that you've built." So I want to touch base on that too, because sometimes we have the tendency to kind of like gear off. Yeah, but what I've done Motor 404 is quite interesting. I was able to literally have some of the most amazing brands in the world that I introduced to the city.
How did you go about starting your own, or like building your own fashion house, or building your own clothing or boutique here in the city? I know we talked about it off the record, just like why you chose to have it here, but just like how did you even go about doing that?
Me and a couple of gentlemen at first started a boutique where we realized that there was a lack of boutique shopping in the city because we traveled a lot to like New York and overseas to get like the unique looks, like the coat, a button-down shirt, or shoes. So we noticed that Atlanta definitely needed like a more of an edgy boutique, especially for African Americans also. Because one thing that I've mastered is we all have a different type of body. So what I've done is I'm giving you the look now, the slimmer look for the bigger guy. The big guy nowadays wants to look slim, more so like tailored. So I've mastered that, and those guys. It's interesting because at one point you couldn't get a pair of jeans a size 44 that were skinny jeans. It was just a full cut. So what I've done when I go to these trade shows, I sit down with the designers and we talk, and then it's kind of like a project that goes on for about a year, and then we put in our order, put a deposit down, your money's held up for 6 months. And then you get the product during the season when it's done, and then you have to sell the product.
Right.
And it's just a process that takes time.
Yeah.
And if the cut is a good cut, obviously your customers want it. They're going to keep buying that particular brand, and you want to go heavier as far as buying it.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, just like the process of becoming your own business owner, like obviously you put in the groundwork. You talk about like having a foundation first of learning about the industry and, studying fashion and seeing, other stores around the world. But when it comes to like, just talk about maybe some of the challenges or setbacks of having to start your own business and start your own boutique. Like, I can imagine there were some things that came with that.
Of course. So the major setback, the pros and cons about owning a boutique, for instance, would be, okay, sometimes you might do a bad buy, and you're going to see the response. You're going to have the product in the store, and nobody's going to buy it. Or sometimes you might do a good buy and overbuy, and then everything has to go on sale, so your investment money is not there. Your profit margin is not there, because you still have to pay rent. You have to pay your employees, taxes, and so on. And those are the headaches that people don't see. They just see the aesthetic of the store. It looks cool, but it's an investment, And
how do you recover from a bad buy?
Well, that's when you put everything on sale. You just dump it.
Yeah.
And then hopefully next season you dump it and you dump the brand. I used to hold on to the brand. Now I'm like, you know what? To each his own.
Yeah.
There's no more.
It's not working
business. Yeah. And then it's a different market for everybody. What works in New York, what works in LA, sometimes doesn't work for Atlanta.
Yeah.
But I've always pushed the envelope where I had some brands that people couldn't even believe that I had, it was actually like kind of like 5 brands that I exposed to Atlanta. People went crazy. One of them was called KTZ. KTZ was very daring. They were from London, and the influence came from Japan. And the way they worked was really interesting because they pushed the envelope. There was like rock and roll, heavy metal, and it was edgy. And then another one was Skin Graft, based out of LA. They dealt with a lot of leathers and a lot of cool cuts that were just very individual, kind of gothic. And one of my favorites was also Vivienne Westwood.
Yeah.
Vivienne Westwood, she's from London. She used to be married to Malcolm McLaren. Malcolm McLaren discovered the Sex Pistols, and the whole thing was like the punk look. And Vivienne Westwood was very respected in the fashion business in London. She also created the hat the Pharrell hat, which is called the Mountain hat. With there's only one guy in London that actually has the mold for that hat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then the meaning behind the hat represents bohemian chic, urban living. When I say urban, it's more so artistically, you know, and very. I'm gonna go deeper. Actually, Malcolm McLaren did a video with the Buffalo Girls, and it's interesting. Are you familiar with that video? Okay, if you look at the video once the show's over, you would notice that everybody was wearing that hat. Fashion repeats itself, you know. What comes around goes around, and I've noticed a lot of people nowadays are always kind of not giving the credit where it's due, where the source came from. So, 51 years ago, the Great Gatsby movie, Ralph Lauren, like, wardrobe the whole movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and with Robert Redford. So even like me growing up, I was watching the black and white movies by Gary Grant and just, Samuel L. Davis. There's just so many cool movies that you get influenced by. I think the latest one that everybody would probably talk about would be Casino. Where you saw kind of like that whole the suit look, the mafia look, and things like that. Yeah.
Interesting. How would you say being a forward thinker has helped your longevity in the industry? Like, you talk about how you're the first to wear skinny jeans, or you were the first to bring the preppy look, or like to really embody the preppy
to embrace
look.
it, actually.
To embrace it, yeah. And you set like such a foundation of 20 years of just relationships with really well-known retailers, like you mentioned already.
Right.
And I'm just curious to know, like, why was that time and process for you important to sustain this like longevity in the business?
I hate to be so cliche, but you know the saying, Rome wasn't built overnight. So it's like, it takes time. And also, sometimes certain cities are not just ready for the fashion sense. But what makes it cool as far as like a boutique, you can go to a boutique and find something unique. And then when you wear it, it's like, okay, it belongs to you. It's your look. I got to give a shout out to one of my homies who's been supporting me from day one. Casino, what's up, man? Free bands. This brother right here has been daring. He's very fashion forward, and he's a big guy, so he's been giving the hood what they want. Like, he's very daring, and his swag is really phenomenal. But I mean, again, like I said, without Atlanta, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now, because I think Atlanta right now, as far as fashion, is incredible. A lot of brothers that have been supporting me from day one in the music industry, movies industry, are very fashionable. They understand what I buy. They support me, and it's really cool.
I wanted to ask you too, like, with the people that you've been able to work with, some of the clients that you have come to your store over and over again, like, how have you been able to, or how do you, I guess, how do you, like, not compromise their style, but also, like, encourage, like, to be daring if your client may not be a casino, you know what I mean?
Sure. So, with that being said, when I usually buy, there's certain things that I will wear that I will not sell to the public, obviously. And then there's certain things that I will like, kind of like have in the stores, like that one novelty piece, just to see how far people will go. And then it's one of those things where you just put it out there, like a painting that's so ugly but it's so beautiful. And then you just leave it there, and then the perfect client will come along. And it's happened multiple times.
Yeah.
That ugly jacket that everybody thinks is so ugly, and all of a sudden, here comes the perfect client for it. And he'll pay top dollars for it. So that's the beauty about fashion and arts, and everything kind of intertwines into music and arts and things like that. You know, it's a really beautiful thing when you see something that you actually believed in, and you knew that there was one person out there that would actually admire it. I have this brand right now that I just picked up from Paris called Lords and Fools. I mean, let's just listen to the name itself.
Lords and Fools.
Lords and Fools. If you see the whole collection, it's nuts. So it's based off royalty, and they do a lot of Napoleon royalty kind of French revolutionary looks, right? It's very avant-garde and very rich. And I know for a fact that it's going to be flying out like crazy. And I'm just honored that they gave me the right to carry it in Atlanta as an exclusive store, and I'm looking forward to doing business with them. I've gotten a small collection that just came in recently, and it's been flying out the door.
Wow.
Yeah, the response has been really great.
It's interesting when you talk about Atlanta fashion, though, in comparison to like New York or LA. What I've noticed and what people I notice in fashion will note is that like, or would you say that this is true in terms of like Atlanta clientele that we gravitate towards things that are flashier or louder? Like if you work in retail, even at like a streetwear store or like a shoe store or whatever,
Sure.
they'll put the lime green shoe out
Yeah.
on display versus like if you go somewhere else and you won't see like the super flashy thing in the front. Is that true to here, or do you think that is just...
It's actually true to a certain degree, but I do remember the time that lime green was a no-no.
Yeah.
Like orange was a no-no.
Yeah.
People went safe, black. Just
Yeah.
want to wear black. But now all of a sudden, it's almost like you live in the 70s all over again. The 70s, if you look at the old pictures or movies, everybody was very colorful. So like I believe that music has such an impact in the South right now, where people are just, they call Atlanta Wakanda now, right? So it's one of those things where everybody is wearing flashy. Atlanta is very flashy. It is, in comparison to other cities.
Yeah.
Because when I do travel, they look at me like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "I guess I don't belong here." But I'll tell you a funny story, because like 7 years ago, there was an epidemic of leather in Atlanta. So
An epidemic of leather.
yeah, it was the leather joggers. Everybody was wearing leather, leather shorts, leather tank tops. It would be like 80 degrees outside. People wearing leather tank top, leather shorts, and I'm like, man, these things are flying out of here. I did a whole collection on it, and I made tons of. That was a good year, put it like that. I'm just being humble.
Off the leather.
It was crazy, the leather epidemic, and I
That's
couldn't believe
interesting.
people buying. But all of a sudden, leather is back.
Yeah.
It
For
died
sure.
down for like 5 years. Now it's back all of a sudden.
How I want to know like how you've been able, because how long has Moda 404 been open?
By the grace of God, thank you so much. We've been open 14 years now.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I gotta give thanks to the Most High first, though,
Absolutely.
And it's been a blessing for sure.
Yeah.
It's hard work. It's not easy.
Yeah, that's why I wanted you to really get into like some of the sacrifices that you've had to make. Like, what sorts of things have been the most challenging for you to continue to stay open? Or like, what continues to motivate you when things don't necessarily go right? Because it's like, sometimes we do things that we're passionate about, that we love.
Sure.
And I'm sure that kind of fuels it. But then there's times where it's like, do I really want to do this anymore?
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
Yeah, like, have you had those moments, and what kept you
I'm
going?
be honest with you. What kept me going is my team.
Nice.
I have a team. I have my business partner. Shout out to Lee. What's up, Lee? What's poppin', kid? She's amazing. She's also a designer herself. And then I have my right-hand man, my brother, my man, Ralph. What's up, Ralph? We actually worked together at Ralph Lauren. So we came from that Ralph Lauren world.
Nice.
And then Trevin. So Trevin, he takes care of the computers, the internet,
The technology.
the technology pieces. And me, Lee, and Ralph, we do the buys, we travel, and then we the floor moves, and the just kind of like focusing more on like the aspect of like budgeting and things like that.
Yeah.
And having to do a smart buy.
Yeah.
Something really cool happened actually like 3 years ago. My company partnered up with Farfetch Online, which is really cool. So I have an amazing international market now. So it's a percentage that we actually split,
yeah.
which is awesome because my inventory, there's days where it's raining outside, nobody's in the store. Oh, it's quiet. But I'm popping on the internet. So that's good.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you like how you've been able to, or if you were even looking to get into like more in tech and fashion, because even like the VR, AR world of with fashion has become a thing. I know there was a couple designers and a guy in tech that were exploring that here in Atlanta. So I was wondering, outside of building that online market and merchandising your or selling your merch online, what other ways have you like intersected with technology?
Well, the other ways I've intersected with technology is obviously social media,
Right.
Instagram. So you post that one picture, and then all of a sudden you get the inbox where people are like, "Yo, I want that."
Yeah,
right. So
right.
that's been a crazy thing. I read something the other day where a guy had an iPhone. He's like, that's where he makes his millions, and I was like, that's true. That's like my walking computer.
Yeah.
You know, that phone.
That's so
Some
true.
people use it for the wrong things, but that phone is quite important because it's a portable,
Resume.
laptop. So that you, it's a
Portfolio
portfolio.
too.
And for the most part, it's been quite interesting, to be honest with you, the clientele that I've been getting from like country singers.
Really?
Yeah, it's like quite interesting, the people that come to that door at times. And I'm impressed. I'm kind of like, okay, you going towards the right path. You got some a legendary country singer walking to your door.
That's interesting.
But the cool thing that happened recently, I think it was like last year in December. I think Jamie Foxx just popped up out of nowhere in the store. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. So the people naturally just hear about you word of
It's
mouth.
like word of mouth. Yeah. And,
Yeah.
it's word of mouth. And of course, I gotta give a shout out to 2 Chainz. What's up, Killer Mike? I mean, Saha, like all these guys, Trouble. It's crazy. Like it's so crazy. Waka Flocka. I keep thinking about the people that have just been supporting me over the course of the years.
Right.
I'm getting excited because if I don't give them a shout out, it's gonna be a problem in these streets. CeeLo was popping.
Nah,
So,
I mean, I have to
crazy.
get back to that, actually, just like the intersection of music and hip hop, because I feel like we touched on it, but not necessarily. Like, why do you think, or how is that so closely related? Like, obviously in the 90s, hip hop and fashion, like, you had the Grand Poobah, you had the Kanye West, who,
Right.
they were trendsetters. They are trendsetters, and like even now, today, you'll see somebody like Thug inspiring a whole generation of people in what he wears. So, why do you find that is such an infectious thing? So, like, where these trends are starting with the music.
Well, as an artist, I've noticed that they want to look different. They're very unique, and once they really get into themselves, where they want to build that charisma of their swag.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where they really have to start thinking outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been graceful enough to say people have been pushing them to go see me. And I guess for me, just kind of like being in the clubs and just dressing differently, I kind of like started this whole thing at one point with the oversized hat, But that also came from the Rastafarian religion. Like, if you see a lot of Rasta back in the days, they wear the oversized hat. And also the aesthetic Jews in New York, it's a sign of, like, royalty.
Mm-hmm.
And, but it's interesting. When I was wearing it, somebody trying to make fun of me and was like, yo, where you going, church? I was like, you know what? Don't worry about what I'm doing right now. You'll catch on. Now it's funny. Everybody's wearing a freaking hat.
It's so interesting, like how you talk about confidence before, of like why you have to be extremely confident in
you have to.
setting those trends.
You have to also take the insults that come along with it.
Yeah. I'm sure you heard your thing.
I remember when having dreadlocks was a taboo.
Yeah.
Even a ball head was a taboo. I remember all those things. So like, I come from the era of like the school of hard knocks, where you're gonna get bullied, you're gonna get picked on, and at the end of the day, you better stick to what you know.
Yeah.
And believe in yourself.
Would you say like coming to Atlanta was the best decision for you?
It's been a blessing. Are you kidding me? The cost of living is great. It's going up every year, and I love the people in Atlanta. I love the vibe. I love the culture. I love where we're going. Shout out to Tyler Perry, what he's doing. Shout out to CNN.
So much.
So much going on in the city. It's unstoppable. Come on, man. You guys are doing a good thing right here too. Pat Shrek, what's popping? What's going on? I'm having fun today.
Yeah.
Early morning. What they said, the early bird gets the...
No, you were here like early.
Yeah, exactly.
I would appreciate you being on time.
Yeah, Sammy. I'm kidding.
Don't do me like that.
No. You were here on time too.
Yeah.
But, I'm glad that we actually got a chance to interact with each other.
I think I respect it. I respect the, building, especially just like as an entrepreneur,
organic.
as a business owner, and it's organic.
Yes,
You've shown and proven like your work ethic from the time being.
Thank you.
You mentioned before, and I just have to ask you this question, that it was a challenge for you to get to Polo Sport. It was a challenge. Why was it a challenge for you?
Thank you for touching base on that.
Is it who you are? Or?
No, for the most part, it was more so the fact that, there was certain requirements in terms of being knowledgeable of like textile and fabrics, and also having a clientele. That's very important. I want to give a couple of advice to a lot of kids nowadays that are just thinking social media is the key to success. A lot of times you guys are just following the followers, but you can have 20 followers with 1,500 multi-millionaires. Quality over quantity. Mm-hmm. That's the problem nowadays. And the reality is that there's trends, there's also a dead end to certain things in fashion, you know. So my thing is to stay consistent. A lot of people sometimes kind of like say, hey, I want to work for you. Hey, bro, put me on Unk. I'm like, wait a minute. You got to go through the process. Like, this is not easy, man. Like, for God's sake, you might see me and judge me by just looking at me, but I speak French. I have a degree in international business. And not to just be like, oh, it just came just on my lap. It's like, it's challenging, you know, especially as a black man. It's not easy. You have to, there's a lot of challenges. And you definitely have to take the time out to, if you really want to be in the fashion world, to fix your credit. Make sure you have good credit. Make sure that you definitely know where if you're coming or going, because a lot of people that I've hired in the past, they don't even know if they're coming or going. They come in, they want to be with the celebrity. They want to kick it over here, kick it over there, but they don't know that that lifestyle is expensive. You know, it's not easy going out just getting a steak and all that other stuff. You have to work towards it. It looks cool on social media. It's a picture, but can you keep up? You know, so I don't know if that's good advice or not.
No, that's great advice.
Just from my world, I'm like, everybody wants a piece of the pie, but they don't want to put the work in.
Yeah. I think it's important to stress the process. A lot of times, like, you know, as young people, we're just like, all right, we want to get, like, we see the future. So it's like, I really want to get here, but, like, that process in between. And that's why this podcast is important, to hear, like, your story of, like, how you worked, put in 15 years into your business and then over 20 years into your craft.
Funny, because once upon a time, it was just me and my business partner, and we were there from, like, literally 11 to 10 every day. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
For 2 years.
That's crazy.
11 to 10 every day. And sometimes even 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Like, working.
Yeah.
And then I remember the times where we would custom make stuff, and people didn't know it was our stuff. We were just in the back custom making stuff with our hands, bleeding, like crazy. We used to make these vests but it was just interesting because at one point everybody wanted these denim vests, and you had to literally go there and get the studs and do this and
oh yeah, those.
Yeah, do you remember those?
Yeah, I do.
And then like you had to bleach, and you smell the bleach, and you know, like a lot of dirty work. But once the finished product was done, you know, people loved it. And
but they don't know what it took to get there.
They didn't.
Yeah. Well, how would you describe your current style?
My current style right now is really like I'm all over the place. Actually, don't follow me. I would not advise you to follow me. So I like a lot of oversized stuff.
What's the first piece that you consider putting on?
Jeez, I like.
Like, do you pick out your shoes first, your pants, your jacket?
To be honest with you, I'm all over the place. I think that I do pick out my shoes first. That's very important. Pick out the shoes first, and then the rest of it is just kind of like, you know, how I feel.
Layering.
Yeah, layering.
Yeah.
Like I said, from up north, back in the days up north, you could layer a lot. But now in the South, you don't know what the weather's going to be like during the day. So you have to be really careful. Yeah. There's times where I call myself out there with a chinchilla jacket. I'm like, where you going, Kwassi? It's going to be hot today. So you got to be careful with that. But anyways, right now I'm at the point where I'm kind of like, I'm in a creative mode, so I'm going a little simple. You know, like I'm wearing these black pants, but I bought about 3 of these pants. My favorite designer right now is Rick Owens. My shoes are Rick Owens. And yeah, that's like, he's crazy. I love his work. He's been doing some great things. And the people that know, they know, you know.
Yeah. That's tight.
It's an amazing brand.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had to ask you, like, your current style and, like, you know, what you pick first, because I think that's important for any, like, designer or anybody in fashion.
The rules are pick out the shoes first.
Yes.
And then pick out the outfit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because, like, right now, for instance, I don't know if you noticed in the fashion world, I got to tell you this. In Paris and in New York, if your shoes are too clean, you're a tourist. If your shoes are distressed, you're a city person.
Interesting.
That means you know what you're doing. Because I don't know if you've been in Paris yet, but
I haven't.
It's a standard thing. If you have some Adidas, they're not supposed to be clean. They're supposed to be distressed. And I don't know if you noticed that a lot of these brands nowadays, I'm not going to give them a shout out because some of them I don't support, but they are literally doing the distressed look with a shoe. Yeah. And then they selling a top dollar and it's selling.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have seen that and I've noticed it. It's interesting. But no, I haven't been to Paris yet, but hopefully soon, and I'll meet you there.
Paris and Germany and Italy is definitely the move.
Places to be.
Yeah.
I'm trying to go to Tokyo. I know that's where
Tokyo's crazy.
Yeah, I need to get there. Well, I'm happy that we had the opportunity to talk to someone, especially in the fashion space, and like how you've been able to work with some of you guys' favorite artists here in the city, and what you're doing with Motive 404. So you got to tell them where they can find you on social media, where they can find the store.
Okay. Hey, Atlanta. Thank you so much for having me here. And you could catch me at Motive404 at yahoo.com. That's the email. And the store is 3145 Peachtree Road, Unit 145, Atlanta, Georgia, 30305.
Nice. Are you on social media?
I'm on social media too, yeah. And it's Moda404, ATL. ATL. And then the other one is Moda404, MODA 404. So let's touch base on what Moda404 stands for.
Moda, I didn't even ask.
Hey, everybody calm down. I got you, Sammy. I got
Thank
you, Sammy.
you.
No problem. Moda404. Moda stands for fashion in Greek and Spanish. So 404 is the area code of Atlanta. So it's Fashion Atlanta.
Nice.
Yeah.
This is simple. Clean.
Yeah, and the dream is to take it elsewhere, Miami and all these other places.
So we're going to get into other cities.
I think my brother Kurt is going to invest into the next store, so about to hit his pockets for that.
Nice. Well, as always, like I said, I appreciate you for sitting down with me and sharing some of your story. We'll hear more as you begin to open up some more stores across the world.
Yes.
No problem. And as always, you guys can find this podcast at IDM Podcast on social media, as well as myself at Sammy Approved on all platforms. Thank you, Kwassi.
Thank you so much. Peace.
Sonic.